I have been the keeper of the Korath listening vault for 34 years, and in 3 days I will step down. There is a procedure. I will lock the final year's transcription ledger, append my tenure summary to the continuous archive, seal my personal effects in the outgoing cabinet, and leave my key on the stone shelf beside the door. The 19th keeper will find it there. If there is a 19th keeper. The vault sits on the Havrin margin, cut into the basalt spine of a moon the Conquered retired from the navigational charts 2 centuries before I was born. It is not a hidden facility, and it is not a prestigious one. It is a minor administrative station in a catalog of 11,000 continuous monitoring posts along the boundary with human space, and in 34 years I have never received an inspection, an audit, or a visitor who was not lost. My requisitions are approved without review. My monthly reports are filed without acknowledgement. The Conquered maintains the vault because Boundary Statute 470, one requires continuous monitoring of all persistent boundary phenomena, and this particular signal qualified on a technicality 8 centuries ago, and no one has revisited the technicality since. The signal has been present for as long as the vault has existed. 814 years of unbroken recording compiled across 18 tenures. Every keeper before me filed the same monthly report using the same classification template that has never been amended. Signal present. No deviation from established spectral profile. Classification. Ambient spectral noise, natural origin. No communicative structure detected. Recommended action. Continued monitoring per Statute 471. That is what the signal is. Noise. A persistent, featureless hum from the direction of human space, sitting on a frequency band that no known natural process produces and no known artificial system has claimed. It does not modulate. It does not encode. It does not respond. It simply exists, the way a current exists in deep water, without intention, without audience, without anything a signals analyst would recognize as meaning. 18 keepers across 8 centuries have listened to it, cataloged it, and written the same one-line report. Not one has recommended reclassification. Not one has requested additional resources. Not one has found anything worth noting beyond the single entry the template demands. The vault is quiet. It has always been quiet. The receiver hum sits below the threshold of hearing, and the moon has no atmosphere, no weather, no life. The work is solitary. One keeper, one shift, one lifetime's contribution to an archive no one requests. I did not mind it. The quiet was the point. I believed what the template said for 31 years. In my 31st year, I performed a routine recalibration of the primary receiver array, a procedure I had run once per quarter cycle for 3 decades without incident. The array emits a brief internal test tone during calibration, a proprietary frequency generated by the vault's own oscillator and used at no other facility in the Conquered's monitoring network. The tone does not broadcast outward. It travels through the internal circuitry, confirms the array's integrity, and dissipates. It never leaves the building. 14 months later, while reviewing the signal's most recent spectral decomposition, a task I performed out of habit rather than expectation, I found that frequency in the signal. Not a harmonic, not an approximation. The precise frequency, to 9 decimal places, at the exact duration and interval of my calibration tone, embedded in the persistent hum from human space like a thread woven into a fabric so old no one examines it anymore. I said nothing. I filed the monthly report, signal present, no deviation, classification unchanged. Then I began to look backward. I requested the deep archive, the full spectral decomposition of every year the vault had been in operation. It arrived on 41 data cores, each sealed with the tenure stamp of the keeper who had compiled it. I started with the most recent and worked toward the oldest, and what I found was not a single anomaly, but a pattern so patient it had taken 8 centuries to become visible. Every calibration tone ever generated inside the vault was present in the signal, every frequency, every test pulse, every diagnostic sweep. Each one appeared in the signal's spectral profile after a delay, sometimes months, sometimes years, but always there, folded into the hum with a precision that made the incorporation seamless. The second keeper's calibration tones were there. The fifth keeper's upgraded oscillator frequencies were there. The 11th keeper's experimental narrowband sweep. A test she ran once in her first year and never repeated was there, embedded in a subharmonic layer that had been carrying it for over 500 years. The signal had not changed in 814 years. That was what every report said. And every report was correct in the narrow way that a technician reading a summary template is correct. The overall spectral envelope did not deviate. But the changes were not deviations. They were additions, folded into the existing structure so carefully that they registered as continuity rather than modification. The signal had been absorbing every emission the vault produced and integrating each one into its own architecture, steadily, across centuries, the way a living thing incorporates what it consumes without altering its shape. It was not noise, it was an echo, and it had been growing since the first keeper powered on the first receiver. I spent 11 months verifying. I cross-referenced every keeper's equipment logs against the signal's spectral history. The correlation held without exception across all 18 tenures and every instrument the vault had ever operated. 8 centuries of the vault's own voice, gathered and carried forward in a hum the galaxy had classified as natural background. I considered submitting an interim report. I considered requesting a signals review team from the Concord's Boundary Analysis Division. I did neither. The vault has no protocol for reclassification because no reclassification has ever been necessary, and I was not yet certain that what I had found was something the Concord would want confirmed. There was one more test I needed to run. The vault maintains a personnel registry, a physical ledger, handwritten in standard ink, stored in a locked stone cabinet in the inner chamber. It contains the name, service designation, and tenure dates of every keeper who has served. It has never been digitized. It is connected to no system. It has never been transmitted, copied, or referenced in any electronic file. It has never been read aloud in any room containing active equipment. It is ink on paper in a stone box in a basement cut into a dead moon on the far edge of monitored space. I ran a spectral isolation on the signal's lowest subband, a frequency range so deep it sat below the threshold of the vault's standard analysis protocols. No keeper had ever examined it because no standard procedure called for it. The subband was not empty. It contained a structured, repeating pattern, not noise, not echo, but something ordered, something placed there with deliberation. I spent 4 months decoding it. The pattern was not complex. It resolved into a sequential index, encoded in a modulation scheme I had never encountered, using discrete units that corresponded, once I found the key, to the characters of the vault's own internal notation system. 18 entries, in order of tenure, beginning with the first keeper's service designation and ending with mine. The signal knew who had been listening. It had always known. Not because we had told it, no keeper's personal designation had ever been transmitted by any piece of equipment in the vault's history. Not because the registry had been compromised. The stone cabinet's seal was unbroken, every layer undisturbed, the ink unaged. The information had never left the room by any means I could trace or any means the 17 keepers before me could have provided. And yet there it was. 18 names across 8 centuries, listed in the order we had served, carried in a frequency band no one had thought to examine. Inside a signal, the entire Boundary Monitoring Division had been calling background noise since before my species achieved interstellar navigation. I filed my final report on the first day of my 34th year. I amended the classification for the first time in the vault's history. I did not use the word noise. I did not use the word signal. I used a term that does not appear in the Concord's standard classification lexicon, because no standard term describes what the vault has been recording for 814 years. The amendment was accepted without comment. No inquiry was opened. No analyst requested the supporting data. No one from the division contacted me. The Concord posted the position of 19th keeper through the standard channels 6 months ago. The posting remains open. No one has applied. The equipment continues to run. The recording continues. The monthly report generates automatically now, the old template, the old classification line, the old recommended action. The chamber is empty, and the hum fills it the way it always has, patient and constant and full of names it was never given by anyone who sat in that room. I do not know what the signal is. I know what it is not. It is not noise. It is not natural. It is not unaware. And it was listening long before any of us thought to listen back.